Hi, we're the Kellys. I'm Steven, and this is my wife, Paige.
And we've been attending Ada for about 14 years. People in our life stage with kids either entering college or post-college experience anxiety in many ways.
Yeah, you know, when your kids are young, you look forward to them getting older and getting out of the house, and then all of a sudden they do. And you go, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this. It's fears that you never thought you'd have. It's worrying about, you know, what they're gonna do for classes. Are they gonna make it through? Are they gonna make enough money when they're older?
You know, it's the unknown. It's not knowing what the future holds for them. I think health plays a big part in causing anxiety because you don't want to lose your life. You don't want to lose maybe your partner's life or someone close to you. If you've not been through it personally, you've seen someone go through something, and you realize the impact it has on their lives and the lives of their families.
When I look at my work and I look at my job and I look at my career, it really weighs heavy on me. Originally started with a company that I worked for 17 years, sold out. And looking at the company I work for now, they're a good company, but is it gonna be the same fit that I've had? It was really good before. What's that look like now? Am I gonna be able to pay the bills to let my kids continue to go to college? Am I going to be able to make enough money here to be able to support our family? Am I gonna be able to do all those things that we wanna do? Really, for me, that's why it is so difficult to find peace in such a culture of anxiety.
All right, finding peace in a culture of anxiety. These rocks here represent the things that we worry about in life, and this bag here represents the way we carry them through life. And so my question for you is this, what's in your bag? What is it that you tend to get anxious about or worry about? And some of you would go, okay, Jeff, I know exactly what it is. It's child number 2. Child number 2. So we're going, listen, grade school years were great. We've hit a phase recently where we have discovered that we are being fibbed to about where the child was, who they were with, what they did, this deal about the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. We have to turn into Sherlock Holmes to find out what actually went on last Friday night. And we work with people that deceive, and we don't want our kid to be one of those. You know, nothing erodes trust like deception. And so, man, that's what would go in our bag, child number 2. We worry about child number 2. And if we're parenting them and correcting them in a way that's gonna get them on the right track. 17-year-old. She says, listen, in other families, there's lots of options what you do after graduation, after high school graduation. High school graduation is 5 months away. Other families, there's options. You just go immediately to work, go into the military. She says, our family, it's just expected. You graduate, you go to college, and when you graduate from college, it's expected that immediately you land in a career that has something to do with the major that you just took and paid for. And she goes, how in the world am I supposed to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing when I'm 35 so I can pick the right major, so I can pick the right college? What if I find out I'm no good at it once I get into it? And the what ifs begin to plague. My family that puts so much weight on being successful in life. What if I fail them? What if I feel like a failure? And she'd go, that's the rock that's in my bag. Someone else would go, it's chronic knee pain. And I am absolutely terrified to have someone cut on me. And I'm afraid to find out that I have a surgery ahead. What if this nagging knee pain that won't go away results in surgery? Someone else, they find that their marriage is just drifting. What if I'm all in? The person I'm married to decides to be all out. What's gonna happen then? And that's in your bag. My friends, this just scratches the surface. I mean, the what ifs can be such a weight in life. What if the chemo doesn't work? What if this training to be a accountant, carpenter, programmer, counselor, what if it doesn't have a rapid income stream that follows? What if this 3-year relationship does not have an engagement ring that's on the other side. And I think we would simply agree that anxiety about tomorrow, fear about tomorrow can cripple the joy of today. There's something about obsessive worry about the stuff that might happen that can suck the joy out of life. And it's heavy. And even when I ask the question, what's in your bag? Some of you look in and you go, Jeff, it's not one thing, it's everything. And these anxiety enterprises, they merge to form multinational corporations, conglomerates. I put them in there, and the things I'm worried about, they mate and multiply and produce offspring. What is it that I'm anxious about? I don't even know anymore. It's like watching a carousel, a merry-go-round with things spinning around, and it's heavy. Try to dance while carrying this weight, and it's hard. Try to swim, and it will take you under. It's heavy. And this idea of anxiety being a weight in our lives, this is not imagery that I came up with. 1,000 years before the time of Jesus, there is a king of Jerusalem. A guy's name is King Solomon, King David's son. And in collecting wisdom sayings or proverbs, King Solomon put it this way: anxiety does what? Anxiety weighs down the heart. It's like this weight that we're dragging through life. So it should not come as any surprise that to an early group of Christians, their spiritual advisor, pastor, and counselor wrote to them this encouragement in Philippians chapter 4. Do not be anxious about anything. There you go. Knock it off, cut it out, go home. You got it. Do not be anxious about anything. How many of you are looking at that and you're going like, you got to be kidding me? Do not be anxious about anything. So what person totally out of touch with reality wrote that? The answer, of course, is the Apostle Paul, when he wrote that, was an inmate awaiting trial, facing a very uncertain future. And the people he was writing to, people living in the city of Philippi in northern Greece, they had financial challenges, they had relationship challenges, and it seems that connecting to the Jesus community had caused some friends, family members to ostracize them, and so at least low-level persecution. And so those words, Philippians chapter 4, do not be anxious about anything. I just want to say, listen, be very careful about killing off all the characters when you open your Bible to the letter to the Philippians. Real world situation, there was stuff to worry about. And the author, Paul, writes, do not be anxious about anything. Actually, the full quote is this, and this is the kind of the boundaries of where we're gonna explore today. Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. In fact, could you indulge me? Could we just kind of read this together, these two verses? Ready? Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Now, what in this short, powerful, life-changing section of scripture, you're gonna notice kind of three components: is anxiety, and then prayer, and then peace. And the idea behind these two verses is this, that through prayer, peace can replace anxiety. That through prayer, peace can replace anxiety. Now, I don't want to make this sound easy, and I don't want to make this sound quick, and I don't want to make this sound without effort, because when we actually get into the conversation about prayer, we're talking about here something that is repeated, and something that I believe is fairly time-consuming and is fairly deep if we want it to be effective. And so the last thing I want you to do is see this as kind of like a simple life remedy, but it is more a set of disciplines, practices, that through the ongoing practice of prayer, peace will invade and anxiety, at least by degrees, will begin to recede. That through prayer, peace replaces anxiety. The good news here is that there's actually something you can do. And we're gonna talk about what that something is. And what I'm suggesting here is that anxiety isn't necessarily something that just happens, and peace isn't necessarily something that just happens, but through prayer, peace can replace anxiety. And so I think this could be, my hope is that because of what is learned today, many of you learn to live in a way that is just so much freer and so much lighter than how you're currently experiencing and dealing with life. And so just looking at this, we're just gonna have 3 conversations. We're gonna have a conversation about a life of anxiety, a conversation about a life of prayer, and then a conversation about a life of peace. And so we're just kind of gonna walk through the passage one piece at a time. So the first thing that the Apostle Paul brought up as he wrote to his friends in Philippi just had to do with a life of anxiety. And it had to do with just that first verse fragment, which said, do not be anxious about anything. Do not be anxious about anything. Now, as soon as I got into this topic of anxiety, I was immediately hit by the complexity of the topic. So we're using the word worry, we're using the word anxiety, but I just want to acknowledge and let you know that I know that there is a wild difference between those of you who are plagued from time to time by mild worry and those of you who experience panic attacks. And you almost call it clinical anxiety. And so we're gonna try to talk about these things in one kettle, but I just understand that this is a complex issue. But as I got into the, just thinking about what is this? When I am living in paralyzing worry, what is it that I'm doing? And so as I was just kind of meditating on this, thinking about this, processing this, I ran into a helpful quote by a guy by the name of John Piper, who has been a Midwest pastor for decades. And he wrote something that I found very helpful, and I find some truth in it that was worth exploring. And so the quote that I read from Piper was this. He just said, anxiety seems to be an intense desire for something accompanied by fear of the consequences of not receiving it. It's kind of a mouthful, but we've highlighted a couple words there. Anxiety seems to be a deep desire for something accompanied by a fear that I won't get it. And so I took Piper's kind of like longer quote and melted it down into just 2 expressions, I want and I'm afraid. And I think there's some truth in this, that there are times when if you find yourself really anxious about a situation, spiraling in worry and finding it sucking the joy out of your life, I just want you to ask 2 questions. What do I want? What do I want? And the second question, what am I afraid of? What do I want? And what am I afraid of? And I really think that there's at least an aspect of anxiety that's very complex. There's an aspect of it that is fear-based. I begin to fear what's gonna take place in the future. And so just playing with this a minute, I'm afraid, it's this 17-year-old, 5 months left in high school trying to pick a major who's finding themselves just incredibly anxious and worried about the future. Kind of like, what do you want? What do you want? Well, that's simple. I want a educational track that will propel me forward into an earning where I can actually support myself. I don't want to go to college for 4 years and then, take a McJobs that has nothing to do with my career and then move in with my parents or grandparents. I want this somehow downstream somewhere to lead to self-sufficiency. That's what I want. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid that with a shifting job market, I'm afraid I'm going to change my mind. I'm afraid I don't even know myself right now enough to know what I want to be in order to select a major. I want, and I'm afraid. Go deeper. What is it you want? What is it you're afraid of? I want my family to see me as successful, and I'm afraid they're gonna see me as a failure. I'm afraid of disappointing those around me. I'm afraid. What do you want? I want this relationship to end in an engagement ring or not. I don't want to burn another 3 years chasing a dead end. I want something, and I'm afraid that this might not pan out. What do you want? What are you afraid of? It's gonna lead to anxiety. It is anxiety. I want something very badly, and I'm afraid it's not gonna happen. What do you want? I want my kids to be safe. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid that I won't be able to protect them, that something terrible will happen to them. What do you want? I want my child to be liked. What are you afraid of? Well, they're kind of socially awkward, and I'm afraid they're going to get picked on and bullied. What do you want? I want a thriving marriage. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid that I'm in a failing marriage. What do you want? What are you afraid of? What do you want? I want the Norman Rockwell Christmas. What are you afraid of? That the turkey will be dry. That people will arrive late and leave early, and everything I'm trying to do to make us a family won't succeed. Baby, I'm telling you, you're anxious about Christmas. I'm telling you, dig deep. I want something and I'm afraid. I want something and I'm afraid. It's with my son, Andrew. It was years and years and years ago. He must have been 11 or 12 years old, and I took him on a hospital call. As I recall, it was a Sunday afternoon, left church. I had this guy that I just loved. His name was Bob. He was in his senior years. He had congestive heart failure, as I remember. And so I went to the hospital, and Andrew was kind of my sidekick that day. And I asked Bob, are you afraid to die? And Bob looked at me with total honesty. He said, no, I'm not afraid to die. I'm afraid of not being able to take care of myself. I've been independent. I've been the one that takes care of other people. I'm afraid that I will get to that point where I won't be able to take care of me and other people will have to come in and take care of me. I'm not afraid to die. I'm afraid of not being able to take care of myself. We leave the hospital, we go out to the parking lot, and I said to my son, I said, did you hear that? He said, yes. I said, did you understand what he was meaning? He says, oh yeah. What do you want? I want to be independent. I want to take care of me. What are you afraid of? I'm afraid that I'll reach a point where I won't be able to take care of myself. There's something about anxiety that is fear-based. There's something about anxiety that fears the future and can prevent us, if it gets a grip on our life, from moving into the future with strength and with courage. And my gracious God calls me to move into a confusing future with strength and with courage, rather than living a life that is dominated by a fear, the fears of what if. Now, those of you that go after this, and literally, if you quieted yourself someday when your heart's just racing with anxiety and you went, okay, what do I want and what am I afraid of? What do I want and what am I afraid of? And if you go deep enough, not always, but every once in a while, you might find yourself in an idol identification process. What I mean is this. Piper used the word, anxiety is when we really deeply want something and we're afraid that we're not going to get it. And sometimes if I want something to the degree that I go, if I don't get that, I don't think life is worth living. If I don't get that, I think I have no value and I have no worth. It's possible, my friends, that I want something way more than I should. That is, I've made it my God. It was Tim Keller, pastor of Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York City, who wrote the book Counterfeit Gods, that is, substitute gods. And Keller, and I'm paraphrasing him here, said this. He said, an idol is not just this statue that's on a table that you offer fruit and flowers to. He said, an idol is whatever you look at and you say in your heart of hearts, if I get that, then I will have value, then I will have worth, then my life will be worth living. And I'm telling you, for some of you, you say, what I want is business success. I want it more than anything in my life, and I'm afraid it's going to elude me. It's possible that we have made business success a substitute God, that God is no longer God. We're looking at business success and say, I depend on you for my value. I depend on you for my worth. And quite frankly, if I don't get you, I don't know that life is worth continuing or going on. As you ask the question, what do I want and what am I afraid of? There are times, not always, but there are times when you would go, I think I have just acquired a substitute God. I have just acquired a substitute God. And so as you go deep in this question, what do I want and what am I afraid of? It could lead to some very revealing things in your life. And you might hear God whisper over your shoulder, so you're telling me that if your friends don't see you as successful, your life is over? You only have value, not as my treasured daughter, not as my treasured son. You only have value if you have the esteem of your peers. Is it possible that you've set that up as a substitute God in your life? And that really is the thing that all of life revolves around. But anxiety could be fear-based. I want and I'm afraid. I want and I'm afraid. And we drag it and we carry it. And anxiety about the what ifs, about what might happen tomorrow. Anxiety about tomorrow can steal the joy of today. And I know what some of you might be thinking, you might be going, yeah, Jeff, but there's a possibility that bad stuff could happen. Newsflash, it will. It's just a matter of degree. In a broken, fallen, messed up world, there will be some crummy days ahead. Let's just acknowledge that. There will be some lousy days ahead. There is a verse in the Bible that says, and it's a day yet to come, where there's a voice from the throne of God saying, I am making everything new. And there will be no more death and no more crying and no more pain, for the whole old order of things will be passed away. My friends, we are not to that day yet. The heart longs for the day when everything is restored. We're not there yet. So, spoiler alert, there will be some challenging days ahead. Here's the deal. Those days might be lousy days. Don't make today lousy by obsessing about the possibility of that day. You double the pain. We're supposed to feel it once. We're not supposed to feel it over and over and over and over again as we rehearse the possibility of it coming. That day might be a lousy day. Don't race to it by rehearsing it ahead of time. We double the pain, we triple the pain by crippling today because of the possibility of tomorrow. I was helped with this. There's this wonderful little volume written by Sarah Young. It's called Jesus Calling. It's kind of like a by the day, it's kind of like there's a thing to read, little devotional for January 1, January 2, January 3. And there's one in January where Sarah Young writes this. She says, rehearsing your troubles, meaning rehearsing stuff that could happen in advance, results in experiencing them many times, whereas you were meant to go through them only when they actually occur. Chew on that. Rehearsing your troubles in advance makes you experiencing them over and over and over again, and they're only supposed to hurt when they happen. Do not multiply your suffering in this way. I love what Sarah Young wrote there. That might be a lousy day 3 months from now, 3 weeks from now, 3 years from now. I don't have to destroy today by obsessing over it. You go, well, Jeff, yeah, but you plan about the future. My dear friends, I have done thoughtful planning and I have done my share of worrying, and I can tell you that there's a difference between the two. Sometimes it's a thin line, but there's a difference between sitting down, thinking about the future, charting out a plan and making a plan, and just obsessing about the what ifs. Sarah Young worded it that way. Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount would say this, therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. I love that. I don't know what he meant by that, but I love that. Tomorrow will worry about tomorrow. And then he says, each day has enough trouble of its own. Each day has enough trouble of its own. It's kind of like, listen, there are challenges of today. Lift your chin with strength and with courage. Attack today's challenges today. Don't try to fight tomorrow's battles that may or may not happen yet. Each day has enough trouble of its own. And I don't believe Jesus is making an argument here about careful planning. I think he's making an argument about obsessive worry. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow. He doesn't say plan. He says this anxiety about the what ifs. And so here's Jesus talking about worry. And go, Jeff, I get it. Worry, bad. Thank you so much. I'm drowning and you're describing the water. What do you actually do? What do you do to empty the bag out of these rocks that I'm carrying around? And the answer that Paul gives, or the response, is the second conversation. And it really has to do with a life of prayer. So for just describing a life of anxiety, I just want to move on to a life of prayer. And this is the way that it's worded in his letter to his friends in Philippi. He says, look, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, he says, present your requests to God. He says, bring your requests again and again and again and again. And this is an anxiety conversation. This is an anti-anxiety activity. Bring your requests to God. Just at every situation there. Bring your request to God in relationship to your kids, in relationship to your job, in relationship to your health, in relationship to your past, in relationship to your future. Bring your request to God. In relationship to your marriage, in relationship to your friendships, frustrations and relationships to your church. In every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God again and again and again and again. I don't, because the tendency is just to look at that verse and say, yeah, okay, Jeff, I tried that, it didn't work. Dear God, please make my third grader behave. Please help me get a better job and better friends. Amen. Peace. Somehow I just don't think it works like that. So in order to give you a tool to hang on to, because some of you, next week, you'll find yourself just caught in this tornado of anxiety. You'll say, okay, now what was I actually supposed to do? I've given you 3 letters. There's 3 letters, just to kind of oversimplify this, 3 letters. And the 3 letters are AT&T. Sorry. And not the communications firm, but we look at these as individuals: ask, thank, and trust. I tried to spell out Verizon, but I didn't have enough material. So if you find yourself just caught in this hurricane of anxiety and go, okay, yeah, take my request to God. What do I actually do? I just want you to think AT&T, and then call the church office to try to figure out what that was supposed to represent. Or look at your notes. Look at your meticulously taken and filed notes. Ask, thank, and trust. Ask, thank, and trust. So the first thing is just ask away. Ask away. And so when Paul said, with prayer and petition, present your, what did he say? Present your request to God. He's saying there, ask God for help. Invite God into the mess. And so the word is just the word ask. And I want to suggest that this might be time consuming. It might at least take you a few minutes. Let's talk about the girl facing high school graduation 5 months away. Ask away. Ask for what? Ask for what? Gracious God, I ask for the wisdom to make a wise choice, because I'm just really kind of confused right now. Help me remember that I am your treasured daughter. And if it's not the perfect decision, help me figure out when to make a better decision, a change major type of thing, because it doesn't have to be permanent. God, give me a wise and discerning heart. Help me to find a college setting where I can grow as a person. I just want to exit this college experience and be, guy says, I want to be a better man. Girl says, I want to be a better woman because of this. Help me never to bail on something when it gets difficult and bail out of discouragement. Help me to make a thoughtful shift in a moment of serenity, because things are not likely to go easy all the time. I give you thanks for who you are and the blessings that you give, and I just really, really, really ask for your help in making a wise choice here. That's what it's talking about. It's talking about present your request to God. I don't think some of these prayers are short prayers. For me, I often write them out, because in those moments when my brain is scrambled and my heart is scrambled and I'm just kind of, these things kind of like spinning around, I get these ADD moments where I need to write down a prayer just to articulate muddled thoughts into articulate form. And so I often write down a couple things. I go, what's going on out there? So can I label it? What is the thing, at least one of the things that is really disruptive? And so what's going on out there? Second question, good question, what's going on in here? What's going on out there is meeting this deadline. What's going on in here is I don't want to feel like a failure. And so what's going on here really gets to the emotions of what's going on out there. But then ask away, ask God for help. God, help me plan carefully, help me bring my background to this situation, help me meet this deadline in a thoughtful way, and please remind me that I am your beloved son, and that is the anchor point of my identity, not whether or not I'm viewed as a success. So what's going on? How do I feel about what's going on? What's going on out there? What's going on in here? And just ask away, ask for help. I mean, this is the parent that just goes, and this is, Jeff, you're so wrong. It's not child number 2, it's child number 3. And you just go, we don't know what to do. Discipline that we've tried, it's like throwing a tennis ball off a brick wall. It just bounces back. We're lost. God, we're lost here. Give us patience. Please give us the capacity to enjoy this child because there's so much to enjoy, and we don't want to give them their impression that they are a perpetual failure in everything they do. God, help us to go after this and to give love and to give strength at the same time. Give us wisdom in how to parent this child, because apparently parenting this child is radically different than parenting the other one or parenting the other two or parenting the other three. Give us wisdom in how to parent this child, because this is a unique situation. And please help us to remember that your journey with them will probably be as creative as your journey with us. What do we want? We want to exit a kid from our home that is a blessing to other people as they lead and as they love and as they serve. And they've got a behavior right now that's going to kill that and crush that and mess with that. God, help us raise a child that would honor you with their lives someday and help us trust you day by day in this parenting thing. This is what's going on. This is what's going on out there. This is what's going on here. Ask away, ask away, ask away. This is an anxiety-defeating conversation with God. Often it's raw, often it's unedited. Be vulnerable, be open about what's going on and how you feel about what's going on, and then ask away. But whatever it is you're asking for, ask for 2 additional things. Give me wisdom in this job search. Give me wisdom with this employee situation. Give us wisdom in finding the right marriage counselor. Give me wisdom with this child. Whatever else you're asking for, ask for 2 additional things. And those 2 additional things you should be asking for are strength and courage. Moses, major character in the Bible. This is the Exodus from Egypt. After generations of slavery in Egypt, Moses leads these people out, and they're like in the desert for like 40 years, and then Moses dies. And in Joshua chapter 1, there's that statement that lands like a hammer, and it's God saying to Joshua, the new leader, Moses, my servant, is dead. Moses, my servant, who has been your mentor and has been your teacher and has been your leader, he's gone. And Joshua, now it's your turn, and you're gonna have to lead these people who didn't actually have a great track record of following leadership. Joshua, now it's you. Now it's you. Moses, my servant, is dead. And you find these words in Joshua chapter 1 that just bolster us in our hour of confusion. Have not I commanded you, what? 2 things. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Joshua, I'm with you, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. You're gonna have challenges. There's gonna be nasty days. I will meet you there. Be strong, be courageous. Whatever else it is you're asking for, ask God for a heart of strength and ask God for a heart of courage. Remember, anxiety is fear-based. I want something and I'm scared. I want something and I'm scared. The way to match that fear is by receiving an endowment from your gracious God of strength and courage. And you begin to approach life not out of a fear-based reality, but out of a strength and courage-based reality. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. It seems here like the opposite of fear is strength and courage. And Paul was in the same space. I mean, the letter to the Philippians is written by an inmate awaiting trial, and he did not know which way this trial was gonna go. And it could lead toward his release, and it could lead toward his execution. And what Paul hoped for, among other things, was that he would live a courageous life in the middle of the not knowing. Philippians chapter 1, verse 20, Paul would write this, I eagerly expect, and this is in the letter to Philippians, the same body of literature where he says, don't worry, don't be anxious about anything. I eagerly expect and hope that I will in no way be ashamed, but will have sufficient courage so that right now, as always, Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death, whichever way this goes. If this leads to my release, if this leads to my execution, I pray that God will give me sufficient courage so that I will honor the name of my Lord, whichever direction this goes. Paul hoped for courage. Whatever else you're asking for, ask for strength and ask for courage, but ask. Okay, AT&T, just a couple other things. Thank. And this is in that verse, and we've looked at this. Let's go to the next slide. Here we go. But in everything, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And 2 weeks ago, we spent the entire message on those two words, with thanksgiving. The idea here is that as you come to God and ask for help with everything that's wrong, remember to thank him for everything that's right. Bring your request, ask away, but as you ask away, thank God for the blessings that are bombarding your life. And we gave you a challenge 2 weeks ago. We called it a 21-day challenge, that for every day, for 21 days, for 3 weeks, to awaken or sometime during the day, just to go, gracious God, I give thanks for these 3 things that are gifts of your generous hand that I did not earn and do not deserve. You're in your last week of this 21-day challenge. For some of you, it's your day 1 at Ada Bible Church. I challenge you to just jump in. 3 items a day. Outside my office, Diana works, one of our servants in the church, talking about this gratitude Thanksgiving exercise. Diana started this a couple years ago. She has chronicled over 3,000 items that she's thankful for. Just 3 items a day, 3 items a day, 3 items a day. What does that do? Over time, not in a day, but over time, it trains your heart to scan the horizon of your life to see the blessings of God that are zipping through your life. If you get to some dark spot where you go, everything is going wrong all the time, chronicling 3 fresh items, 3 unique and fresh items a day can train the heart to go, no, it's not. Yes, this is an awful mess we're in right now, but even in this awful mess, we are experiencing the gracious and good hand of God by these gestures of his kindness, even in the middle of this mess. Prayer and petition with thanksgiving. AT&T, ask and then thanks. It's so powerful. It's so powerful because thanksgiving has a tendency to push out anxiety, complaint, and envy. Complaint is an obsession with what's going wrong. Anxiety is an obsession with what might go wrong. Envy is an obsession with what is going right for everybody else. And there's something about saying, God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the snow that blankets the ground and covers the earth. And I open my window and it looks like a winter wonderland outside. Thank you for the pepperoni pizza that we enjoyed last night. Thank you that I was able to turn the dial this morning and see the temperature in our dwelling climb. It is a blessing from your hand that we have these things. AT&T, ask, what's word 2? Thanks. Word number 3 is trust. There is just something about this process of saying, God, I need help here and I don't know what to do and I need wisdom and I need strength and I need courage in facing this. There is something about the overarching process. We can go back, please, to the AT&T. It just says, I trust you, I trust you, I trust you. Jeff, what do you do if you don't? Then tell God you don't. As you're in the process of saying, I'm at the end of my rope here, I don't know what to do, and God, I don't know if I trust you, then at least there it is. But listen, but God, I want to trust you more. I have trouble trusting you, God, because I don't trust anybody. I got hurt deeply. I don't like to trust other people. I don't know if I can trust you. Help me learn to trust you more in this process because I need help here. So as you say, God, I trust you to come to my aid. If you can't say that, then say that you can't say that. But I think there's an additional prayer there. Just help me learn to trust you. Help me learn to trust you. Jesus, as he's walking, he collects these disciples. And there's a bunch of them, but there's 12 core disciples. One of them is Peter. And after the crucifixion and resurrection, Peter becomes one of the leaders of the Jesus community as it's growing. And the way Peter would talk about anxiety is like this in 1 Peter chapter 5 in your Bible. It says, cast all your anxiety on him. Why? Because this dude walked with Jesus for 3 years. He said, listen, take your anxiety and throw it toward Christ. Why? What if he really cares? See, sometimes I think we don't pray because we just don't think he cares. And I just love what Jesus' disciple wrote here is, listen, take your anxiety to God, ask away. Why? Because he really cares for you. It's a life of trust. Now, what could happen as you begin to take things out of the bag, and rather than making them objects of anxiety, making them objects of trust and objects of prayer, and I gotta have help here. I need strength for tomorrow. I need courage to face this. I need courage as a dad. I need courage as a husband. I need courage as an employer. I need courage as an employee. I need courage as a woman. I need courage as a man. As you ask away, you might find yourself walking away feeling freer, feeling lighter, feeling more whole and more integrated, feeling more connected to the people around you because you're not obsessing in your own brain and in your own heart. So this feeling of freedom and wholeness and being lighter. Jeff, is there a word for that? Yes, I believe it's the word peace. A life of peace, the final verse in this section is, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will what? Will guard your hearts and your minds through this Jesus connection that you have in Christ Jesus. Will like post a guard over, and two things are mentioned there, it's interesting, over both your hearts and what? And your minds. The heart was seen as a kind of the center of emotions, and I think the racing brain, the mind that won't stop running. And I just love the way the peace of God will post a guard over your emotions and over your thinking, over your heart and over your mind. Several years ago, I was running with two buddies. We were in marathon training. It was a long, slow road run. And we happened to pass a house that was under construction. It was not a small house. And we suspected that the owners were a prominent West Michigan family. And because there were no doors or no windows, I mean, it was just basically framed in, but nothing there. And there was no trespassing sign. We left the road and we wandered over just to kind of walk in and kind of go, okay, this is the kitchen. This is one of the fireplaces. And then we looked up as a black SUV with tinted windows pulled into the driveway. And there was this moment where I looked at the distance to the SUV and I looked at the distance to the woods. And there was just this seventh grader in me that went, run, run. But instead, Reverend Manion turned toward the security vehicle. And we walked over and just said, oh man, I'm so sorry. And the security guy, which is a fairly official type person, looked at us and he could probably tell pretty quick, three guys in their 40s in running clothes with no vehicle. We were not thieves, or if we were thieves, we were pretty bad at it. And so I introduced myself. I said, well, look, we're on a training run. I'm so sorry that's brought you out here. We were just, and he said, yeah, what marathon are you training for? We're training for the Bayshore Marathon up in Traverse City. He says, well, enjoy your run. And he didn't say leave now, but he said enjoy your run, which meant leave now, and it was time to go. Now I think about that. If we can go back to that verse where it says, well, guard your hearts and minds. It sends a guard. He says, yeah, time to move along. You don't belong here. Remember that. When the joggers begin to race through your heart and mind, anxiety and his buddies, fear and dread of the what ifs. But if the peace of God moves in and just says, yeah, it's really time for you guys to go. I don't think we can keep fleeting worry from entering our heart for moments. We can't keep it from camping out and living there. So the peace of God will post a guard over your heart and over your mind and just tell anxiety, yeah, it's time to go. It's time to go. Paul is writing that to people living in Philippi. It was a Roman colony. It was on a major Roman road. They had troops, Roman troops, moving back and forth on this road, troop movements. One of the purposes of the Via Ignatia, the main road that went right through the town, was troop movements. It was a town settled by military veterans. They knew what it was like for a Roman soldier to stand guard over a home or over an office. He said, yeah, that's what the peace of God is going to do in your life. It's going to post a guard there. This, my friends, is not automatic. Peace is shown here as a consequence of prayer. Do not be anxious about anything, but with prayer and petition, every situation, keep presenting your requests again and again and again, and then the peace of God will post a guard over your heart. Quite frankly, I think we want the peace without the prayer. The kind of prayer we're talking about here, where you actually talk with God in a raw conversation about what's going on, about how you feel about what's going on, and asking for his help, this, I don't think is quick. I think it takes some time, particularly if you get in the habit of doing it again and again and again and again. But what it leads to over time is that you learn to walk with God as you invite God to walk with you. You say, something lousy might happen out there, but I'm coming to believe that if that happens, you will meet me there. Give me a heart of strength. Give me a heart of courage. I am not supposed to go through life paralyzed with fear about the what ifs. All I've been attempting to say today is that some of us are intended to live in a much freer way than we're living today, and to be much lighter as we move through life. Our Lord Jesus had many titles, but one of the titles for Jesus when he came was this. He was called the Prince of Peace, the Peace Prince. May the Prince of Peace, may you invite the Prince of Peace into each and every anxiety in a way that you begin to live with peace and freedom that perhaps you have not known for years. And so may our gracious God meet us in this week that we might live with less anxiety and greater peace and be more alive to God and more alive to the people around us. We ask this in the name of Jesus, the Prince of Peace that came to this planet for us. Amen.